I want to bring in for his reaction now, former Prime Minister of Australia. He's now Vice Chair of American Global Strategies, Scott Morrison. Mr. Morrison, thanks for joining us this Sunday afternoon. How do you react to this momentous day?
It is a momentous day, but it's not one that's unexpected. And we have the president here who's enforced his red lines. He'd been very clear about all of that. He said that he wanted changes when it came, when in fact the complete removal of their nuclear enrichment program. He said he wanted to significantly, massively reduce their stockpiles and to walk away from their proxies in the region. And as recently as Thursday, they were just saying no. Now, we've seen Iran take advantage of US administrations in the past. This did not happen on this occasion, and President Trump called it. Now, he's engaged in a range of a very large number of strikes together with the Israelis, and the Israelis have targeted many of those leadership targets. And what you've just reported, I'm hearing the same thing, that they're able to strike at a time when many of them are all in the same place, and with a daylight strike, which was a bit of a surprise, which means they've been able to take out, it would seem, quite a number of very senior leaders. But there are plenty of others in the IRGC, and the Iranians will continue to strike back where they can and opportunistically, but for how long, and it is really a question.
It's extraordinary to see if it's not just Khomeini, but maybe the next in line and the one after that. If you're looking at the list, it is a lengthy list of senior leadership that could well have been wiped out if these reports and sources are accurate. The Iranians understandably not confirming any of that at this point. They're obviously still in shock. But how seismic is that then for Iran and the region if that whole leadership group were to be killed?
Well, there'll always be others. We saw this with the proxies as well, where you strike one down, another one rises up, and maybe not at the same level, maybe not with the same experience and not with the same authority, but they do rise. I think the real issue there is thinking through, okay, what next? Clearly, I mean, they're already in a weakened state. I think that's important to understand. They chose to refuse the president's overtures on coming to a deal, and they've accepted what comes from that. And now, so the question is, what next? The Americans are clearly not engaged on a boots and ground walking into Tehran. That's not going to happen, and neither are the Israelis doing that. So an aerial bombardment of this sort very rarely leads, if at all, to regime changes. I think that's why you've got the messages of, well, now's your opportunity, and we'll see what happens. But the objective of the United States in particular was to destroy, annihilate those threatening capabilities, whether it's through their networks, whether it's through their missiles, or whether through their nuclear enrichment. Now, those objectives will be substantively, particularly on nuclear enrichment, will be achieved. Whether a regime changes or not, or whether it changes in a way which is a positive or a negative, we've got to wait and see. Does it lead to civil war? And if so, who's backing who in those civil wars with others in the region? And that could be very unclear. But one thing is for certain, the Iran we have known for the last 40 plus years, almost 50 years, is no longer the Iran that threatens the world today. And that's a good day.
Mm. Yet, indeed, that's changed dramatically. And you rightly point out the uncertainty that remains in its wake. The Prime Minister's welcomed the strikes. He's backed the US strikes. But at the same time, the Foreign Minister's saying while they back it, they also call for de-escalation and getting back to talks. Is that incongruous, those two messages, in your view?
Well, Kieran, I haven't heard those remarks, so it's probably not appropriate for me to fully comment on them. But I do welcome the fact that the Prime Minister last night even was far more quick to support the US on this occasion than he was last time. I congratulate him for doing that and showing that solidarity so quickly. And it's not like the president had to telecast what he was prepared to do if the Iranians were not prepared to engage. And so I commend him for doing so. But then, this operation is not over yet. And, I think it's important that that solidarity is maintained. They will continue in this bombardment, it would seem, for some days at least yet. And then we will see what follows from that. But it is important for the government to have consistent messages here. There can't be one message for some domestic audiences, other for other domestic audiences, and then messages for international audiences. There should just be one message, and it should be what the government thinks. And I would hope that's the message that the Prime Minister sent in terms of his solidarity and support for President Trump's actions last night.
Yeah, the PM said he backs the US strikes. He's made no specific mention of the Israel strikes. Now, this is the largest air operation by Israel ever in its history. This was a massive part of this initiative. It was a joint operation. Do you read anything into that, the fact that the Prime Minister's only saying the US strikes when it was a US-Israel operation?
Look, I mean, it's exactly as you say, Kieran. This was a combined assault initiative. It was provoked by Iran's intransigence over holding on to positions that were completely unacceptable to peace and stability in the region, the threat that Iran held over, not over only Israel, but over the entire region. And there's been very strong-held views in the region more broadly against Iran's destabilising influence, whether it's in Saudi Arabia or the Emirates or other places. And they indeed were all targets of their reprisal attacks today. So, look, if the Prime Minister is engaging in nuance on this, I haven't seen that yet. But at the same time, this was one combined initiative. It goes back clearly several months. Where planning began. The Israelis' intelligence has clearly been pivotal to the timing of the strikes when people were together. So to welcome what the US has done, you cannot then somehow exclude Israel from that support. I mean, they have acted in concert in a good cause, and they should equally be commended for acting not only in their own national interests, but I think ensuring that a despotic regime like it is in Iran, let's be clear, that's what it is. This is an apocalyptic, despotic regime that only a month ago killed at least 30,000 of their own citizens. So let there be no tears shed for this diabolical regime, which has threatened the world for nigh on 50 years and threatened death to America and anyone else who was their friend.
And the timing of it as well is interesting, isn't it, Mr. Morrison, in the sense that you've got those proxies, like I'm thinking Hezbollah, very much diminished right now. They're nowhere near as powerful as what they once were. So you've got that intelligence that they seized upon today, but also the knowledge that their adversaries, like the proxies, are not as strong as they were. So it's a moment in time as well where they can really wipe out the regime as they have.
Well, it's one of those sliding doors moments, actually, Kieran, and they walk right through. And as you say, they are weak in both in their proxies and their own position after the 12-day war, and in terms of the stability within their own country. And the US and Israel have struck. But let's stress again, they have only struck after Iran continued to refuse what were very, I think, reasonable demands on behalf of the United States. And that has led to the action. And the president has made it very clear that when he draws red lines, they're red when it comes to these security issues. And I think that will carry a strong message to others who, if they doubted him now, up until now, or even after Maduro, I don't think they can anymore. The US has demonstrated its quite significant military power here, and that is a big reminder of who they're dealing with. And I think that's something that will settle in. The other point you make rightly about places like Lebanon, and I'd extend that to Syria as well. I mean, these are also countries that have been going through quite a bit of tumult, but in a positive way have seen some real progress being made. The US and others in the region have strongly supported that, the removal of the sanctions or significant reduction of them there, and in Syria has been positive. And so one would hope that what has happened here won't destabilise that process, because that's a positive process and we'd want to see that continue. But at this point, I think they're questions which will remain. And for some time, I think we will see, some instability. The Houthis and the Hezbollah and others, yes, they are significantly, particularly Hezbollah, reduced and diminished, as are Hamas. but they're still out there, and the Houthis will do what they will do in the Gulf. They will also seek to disrupt Straits of Hormuz, etc. And on top of that, Hezbollah will take their chances where they can. So you can expect some kicking and screaming to continue to go on by their proxies, but they are a much debilitated force than what they used to be. And why is that? Well, thank you, the United States and Israel.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And just finally, Mr. Morrison, I'll let you go, but I'm sure that you, like many Australians, many of our viewers, will have some quiet reflection and hope that I certainly will be hoping that the great people of Iran will get some freedom and some opportunity to thrive in the wake of these events, because it is a great civilization. It's a despotic regime, a tyrannical regime, as you said, but it is a great civilization. We hope that they can thrive once again.
I would agree with that, Kieran. And I hope and pray for exactly the same thing, but it is by far a foregone conclusion. Yes, the United States has come and provide with Israel this opportunity, but whether there is a regime change that extends the freedoms and liberties and opportunities for the people of Iran, that is very much within their hands. And if they are to seize that, it won't come without great personal risk as well. So let's hope and pray that is the case, but there are no certainties around that.
There aren't. Former Prime Minister, Vice Chair of American Global Strategies now, Mr. Morrison, thanks so much. Thanks. We'll talk to you soon.